What's up, everybody? This is Jason, and I thought I'd go live. I had another set of cards I wanted to get shown off from Doug's in Boston. So I thought I'd do that real quick. These are going to be wrestling cards. I did a live stream, I think, on Thanksgiving. So that was really fun, actually. So I'm going to hang out here and again, Sunday morning, probably not the ideal time to go live, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of like, it's the time I have at the moment. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. Make sure I don't drop my drink. So I'm going to show off the cards, just do some talking. Nothing too involved. Supposed to be the first day here in Indiana, at least my part of Indiana, that we're supposed to get some snow. I don't think it's anything significant, but that's the word around the campfire. So everybody's like out in force this morning or yesterday trying to get ready, which I think is pretty hilarious because it's supposed to be just a very light drizzle of snow, but people in this area, they freak out about the snow around these parts. So it cracks me up. So I'm just staying in because people are already getting nuts, and it hasn't had one snowflake hasn't even fallen yet. But anyways, I could be wrong, and maybe it'll end up being like a freaking blizzard, but I seriously doubt it. I appreciate people who are popping in. I wanted to get some of these cards shown on camera. It's been a 3 months in the process of me doing this. I feel bad about not doing this more timely, but I want to get this done because I rarely get care packages anymore, which of course is understood. I'm not really much in the community as far as actively involved. I still watch a lot of videos, but I just don't really communicate as much as I used to. Every once in a while, I'll leave a message on somebody's channel or their video, but I just kind of moved away a lot from sports cards in general, and so the subject matter, the talking points, just don't interest me all that much. It's not because I'm not enjoying what people have to say. It's just I don't really know the point of reference a lot of them, at least with the newer stuff. So, anyways, I appreciate everybody hopping on. I thought my camera crapped out on me for a second, but it looks like it's fine. And I have in the background here. I don't know if most people know there's in the 90s, maybe into the 2000s, I guess the aughts, there was a record label out of, I believe, Seattle, Washington called Tooth and Nail Records. And they dealt mostly with Christian bands. And a lot of the music I listened to back then I really enjoyed that they had on their label. And so it was like a mix. It was like punk rock, there was hardcore, there was experimental rock, there was electronic, noise, alternative, kind of pop rock type stuff. But they really signed a lot of bands, and I think it was a little bit of everything for everybody. And so as life went on, you find out a little bit more about these bands and about that label that kind of make you go like, maybe they were cashing in on the gullible nature of Christians. Will buy anything if they say that you're a Christian band, if you have Christians in a band, if you're a Christian label, even if that stuff is not necessarily true or stretched or whatnot. And so there was a lot of money to be made by bands and labels like Tooth and Nail. So, the bands I liked seem to be like the Real McCoy, and they still seem to be pretty involved today. But it sometimes is sad to find out that you were kind of being bamboozled. You're being I guess being naive or taken advantage of, or just lack of knowledge. I guess even ignorance to a degree. But I mean, back then it was harder to find out information about bands and individuals, and so you would go based off of what they were saying and what their public perception was, and not really what was going on behind the scenes. It is what it is. I still enjoy quite a few of those bands, and I saw quite a few of them live back in the olden days. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I enjoy it for what it is. I'm gonna be doing a video shortly. I want to get this box of cards out of the way so I can put it away. But there is a guy, I guess, really, but who is like more of a industrial, kind of like a heavy metal industrial singer. And I went to a show he was playing. I didn't even know. I had heard his music because I was looking at the original lineup. This was probably about a month ago, 2 months ago, and the band's name is Firebrand. And actually, I have one of his stickers right here. I'll show it. But yeah, it's Firebrand. That's Fyre. I'm gonna do a video where I'm talking about him, his music. But I bought a CD from him, and I bought a hoodie. I bought a hoodie, which I never really bought a band hoodie in 25 years, probably. But I really liked his music, and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna rock his album cover on this hoodie that he had. And I bought a CD. I bought his special collector's edition CD. And then I sent him the inserts, the inlay of the CD, and I asked him to autograph it for me. If I would have thought about this when I saw him, I just would have had to pull it out and said, hey, sign it now. And he said, oh, yeah, man, just send it to me. I'll sign it. And I asked him to put a Bible verse on there, which he did. So I'm gonna show that off, which I'm excited about. The guy's a really good guy. I liked him a lot. He's from Kentucky, which I won't hold that against him. And I just enjoyed what he was doing. So I'm going to be kind of doing a little bit of a spotlight on his music. So if you like industrial metal, then you'll like him, I'm sure. If you don't like that type of music, then you probably won't like it because it's very industrial, very metal. So yeah. So anyways, let me get into showing the cards, and we'll go from there. And yeah, that's it. So this is kind of appropriate considering this is right after Survivor Series yesterday. What up, Steve? Yo, and hello. I've heard that opening at least once or twice in my life. So Survivor Series was last night. I don't watch WWE really anymore. I mean, I might catch some highlights here and there. But the big news coming out of that, which I guess is kind of unfortunate if you're one of the WWE wrestlers because you hope as a good show, you put yourself out there, was that CM Punk is back in WWE after the debacle that was his experience at AEW, which was unfortunate because initially I was a pretty big fan of Phil Brooks, but I really soured on him as he started doing his run in AEW. He turned AEW into a clown show, in my opinion. He was spent more time running his mouth and running around wearing, liberal propaganda T-shirts than he was wrestling. He spent more time on the shelf than it felt like than he was in the ring. And he managed to get into altercations with anybody who apparently did not, quote unquote, respect him or his views on the business or wanting his help. So, no one's really ever going to know a lot of stuff, but it just seemed like he just, wherever he was going, wherever he went, caused this mayhem. So, yeah, me too, Steve. The '80s up to the 2000s, man. That was my. I watched WWE, or really I watched WWF. I never really truly watched, and still haven't really watched WWE. So my playground was WCW and WWF back in the day. Now I did see, which I didn't know at the time, because I lived in the Louisville area. I was also seeing a lot of, I believe, Mid-South on TV, which again I didn't really know that at the time. I believe it was Mid-South, but because they had they had a territory up that way that was being Lexington and Louisville, Evansville. They wrestled a lot. So there was, I think that was Mid South. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's them. And so I would see those matches too. But again, I didn't watch it religiously when I was that young. But by the main was WWF, of course. I remember going to my dad would never want to pay the $50 or $60 for the pay-per-view. And we would always ask, like, Dad, can we get the pay-per-view? And he'd be like, nope. Which, as now, a guy who has to pay money for those type of things, I totally understand. I wouldn't want to pay that money either. But my dad had always had a good deal worked out with his buddies who ran a video shop, a VHS store, mom and pop shop back in the day. He always had the deal worked out with those guys that as soon as the VHS came in, even before they were supposed to release it to the public, because a lot of times those mom and pop stores would get the VHS or VHSs of whatever new releases like a week in advance, sometimes longer, before it actually supposed to hit the shelves. So my dad had a deal worked out with the guys who he was friends with since high school to let him have it early so we could watch it. And they always were like, sure, that's fine. Yeah, we'll give it to you when it gets in. And so my dad would get the pay-per-views, a week or if not more before it actually hit the stands, hit the shelves. And so me and my brother and all my friends would come together and watch it. And it was so cool because we got to see it before, unless you were there or unless you paid the big money to watch the pay-per-view. Back then, there was no other way of watching it. That was it. You had two ways of watching it: be there live and in person, or pay to watch it in pay-per-view. The only other way around it would be to wait for the VHS a couple months later. So we always got to see it like as early as you possibly could see it without the street date. And so it was always so super cool that we all get together, do like these big pizza parties, and we'd eat Pizza King pizza or Pizza Hut pizza and watch wrestling. And me and my brother, like all of our friends and my dad would watch it. So yeah, it was pretty cool. Have you watched? No, I didn't watch the Young Rock series. Of course, I know about it, but I never watched it. So I heard it's actually pretty good, but I'm not the biggest fan of The Rock, so I don't know if I could handle a 30-minute show or however many 45-minute show of him talking about himself. I don't know if I can handle that, to be honest with you. I used to be kind of a Rock fan, but as I've gotten older and he's gotten more just goofy, I'm not the biggest fan. I know it has a lot to do with the 80s, and so I might like it because they're going to show off like Andre the Giant or Hulk Hogan or the what do you call it, the Samoans or whatever. But yeah, maybe I'll get around to watching it eventually. I know they just canceled it after 3 seasons, I think. So anyways, but yeah. So that was fun. That was always fun watching. So let me go ahead and show some cards off, and I'll keep talking. And if people want to chime in, that's great. If people want to hop on with me, that'd be cool. I'll put the link in the listing if people want to hop on. So actually, I'm gonna go backwards because some of the bigger name cards are at the end. Yeah, a lot of the 80s wrestlers are. Yeah, I figured as much. And I've seen clips. Obviously, I'm aware of the show. I've seen clips. I've seen probably 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. The show just popping up on TV or something, but. Like I said, I mean, The Rock for me, I don't know. I was more of a, and I wasn't a big fan of the Attitude Era, quite frankly. Like that to me, when it was like all about the TNA, if you know what I'm saying, and it was like so over the top, ridiculousness of the wrestling business. I kind of lost me. I mean, I like to watch this wrestling. That's probably the reason why I like AEW so much, because they generally stay away from entertainment, sports entertainment, and just focus on the wrestling, which people, there's both camps in there. I think you can have both. But last night, which I didn't watch, I never watched Survivor Series. There was a what do they call it? Like a War Games match, I think, in a cage. And I could be wrong, but what I heard from other people, or like what I saw from listings, There was a War Games match, which is supposed to be like these brutal, battles inside of a cage match, but no blood, nobody was bleeding. It was just like you're like in this fantasy land of like cotton candy and pillows, and no one was bleeding. Now I don't need it to be like a murder scene in there, but how you can have a show called War Games or have a match called War Games, and then not a single person like even gets a like a paper cut. Where AEW is a complete opposite, where there's like people drinking blood on TV. So there has to be a happy medium. Like I don't need to see that either. So I mean, like I'm not trying to put one over the other. But if you're gonna have a match called War Games, and you're out there with like feather boas and like pom poms, I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, that's like an insult to your intelligence. But again, I don't need vampires drinking each other's blood and blowing it out, like doing like a gangrel, like spewing it out of his mouth in front of everybody. Him and Oprah pissed off. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, him and Oprah did piss a lot of people off. That's true. Yeah, I mean, those are the kind of people who are just so not in touch with reality. And for all the stuff that The Rock or Dwayne Johnson has said over the years about, he's just a normal guy, and he's part of the boys and all this kind of stuff. Really a lot of that's just a bunch of BS. I just find it to be, very not genuine, very just word what's the word I'm looking for? Just very pay a lot of lip service. So yeah, I think what is going on here? Okay. I think I was like, it was too much back and forth. I'm just put it on this. This is better. All right. So yeah. Oh yeah. Kane and his dead girlfriend was her. Yes. Things like that just irk me. I mean. So, but yeah. So, anyways, that kind of stuff just irks me. The whole thing I heard over the years, they had like a whole thing with like Mark Henry and a hand and all the old ladies that they would be like power bombing, like what's her name, Fabulous Moolah, and all of them like getting power bombed through tables, and then they had some kind of thing with a rat in a cage or something with Bray Wyatt and his family. They just have all this goofy stuff. I just can't get into it. And I'm not saying the wrestling's not good. The wrestling could be fine, but there's just way too much goofiness for me. And I want to watch wrestling. I just want to watch people get in a ring and wrestle. Like, yes, I want a storyline. I want to invest in what's happening in the ring. But sometimes I don't need that. Sometimes just like watching an action movie, you really watch the action movie for the action. Like the story can be very loose. Like a lot of us can watch a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie or a Arnold Schwarzenegger movie or a Steven Seagal movie from the 80s or the 90s, and it's a very loose plot. Good guys do bad things. Good guy goes and destroys bad guy. I mean, that's essentially what we need. I don't need a very layered, complex story that's an award-winning story. And I think people are expecting wrestling to have some sort of like Oscar-winning writing, and it's if give me something to invest in a little bit, and then give me some kind of like, some kind of peril they may be in, or some sort of high stakes scenario, hang all that on that situation, and then let's do the matches or the match. But I don't know. That's just wishful thinking. So let me show some cards. We can keep talking if you would like. I just went to the theater and watched New Hunger Games. Pretty good movie. Yeah, I heard that from a friend of mine yesterday also, that she went with her son and they went to see it. And I didn't think it was going to be any good, but they said it was actually pretty good. I'm not a big fan of that actress, whatever her name is. I don't know. She was or is playing Snow White, Ziggler or something, or I don't know. Not Dolph Ziggler, but the other girl. So her presence just annoys me, and I know she's in that movie, so I'm just like, I don't have any interest in really watching that. So I might eventually catch. I've seen all the Hunger Game movies, so I'll probably end up watching them eventually. But I want to see Silent Night. That looks good. It looks like a good action movie. It's coming out by the next weekend, so I want to see that. That looks like it'd be fun. With I think his name's Joe Kinnaman, but it looks like an action-packed movie taking place around Christmas. So I want to sign up for that one. And there was one or two other films I saw coming out that I'm interested in seeing. So we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. So let's get into showing some cards and talking about, and then we'll talk about whatever. First up is Mean Gene Okerlund, everybody's favorite commentator, announcer, back interviewer. Back in the interview days. So yes, just poured a hot mug of coffee and sat down to enjoy the chat. You have the coffee, and I have the tea today, Joe. So I have the Japanese green tea, so we're on the same page. Yeah, Joe is here, so let's do it. I got another Mean Gene, so I'm not showing that off. Some of these wrestlers I don't really remember anymore, so there it is. Paul Roma, I can't really say I remember Paul Roma all that much, so I won't probably be talking about him. But we got Jesse the Body Ventura. So as you all know, right there, the movie Predator, talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger. There you go. That's perfect. Jesse Ventura, lots of lines in his dialogue in that movie, which would no longer be acceptable in 2023. I will not be repeating any of those lines except the one line he says, which I think still is hilarious today, is he is a sexual Tyrannosaurus or something like that. That line cracks me up even today. Like when I hear that line, I know it's coming, but that cracks me up when he says he's a sexual Tyrannosaurus. I was like, okay. But there's a couple lines in that movie that he says that wouldn't fly in modern society, that's for sure. Hope you're doing well, just catching up with some zombie. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, that's nice. I would love to go live, but for some reason I lag pretty bad. Oh, man, that sucks, dude. Well, I know one of these days I'm going to go live with Joe. Maybe I have to go all the way to Canada to go live with Joe, but I need to go up there and go live with Joe. But yeah, I would love to get you to go live and we can hang out on here and we can talk shop, talk wrestling, talk whatever. So let's keep on trucking. We got Bad News Brown. I can't honestly say I don't remember a whole lot about Bad News Brown. I wish I did. The famous wrestling move is the Ghetto Blaster. Probably would not fly nowadays, I would assume. That probably would not be something you can get away with saying now. Even if you're a black wrestler, you come out and say something like that, probably not going to work. And then it says here on Jesse Ventura's back of his card, it says he has appeared in many, many Hollywood films. That seems to be a bit of a stretch. What other films in when do these cards come out? 87? No, 1990. Other than Predator, what other movies was he in? I'm not for sure. Oh, gee, it's Rick. What is up, the Rickster, a fellow Hoosier? What is going on, my friend? And we got Mr. Fuji. Apparently one of the biggest pranksters ever in wrestling. And let's see here. It doesn't say anything about him. Some of these cards don't age well with some of the stuff, the subject matter on there. So I'm looking forward to reading through them and see what they say. Then we have a gimmick that is pretty silly. The Brooklyn Brawler. He also played, I think, Doink the Clown. He also had another one or two gimmicks that he played, but apparently he was pretty chummy with Hulk Hogan. So there you have that. Those got to be the laminate card backs going. The lamest card backs. Oh, yeah. They are very lame. This is for sure. Then we got the Hart Foundation. Jim the Animal Neidhart and Bret the Hitman Hart, with Jimmy Hart back then was their manager. And let's see here. No, nothing really too shocking on the back of this card. Jim the Animal Neidhart's daughter is still wrestling for WWE. I think her name is Natalia. So she's actually a looker. It's kind of funny because you would never think so. You see Jim the Animal Neidhart, you're like, ugh, that's a rough-looking fella. But yeah, his daughter is pretty good looking. Then we have one of the goofiest gimmicks ever in wrestling, Coco Beware. He'd always be like, that was probably pretty silly. I'm trying to see if there's anything in here. The Bird Buster is one of his famous wrestling moves. The Bird Buster. Don't remember that one. Good looking and good wrestler. Yes. Yes, she is. She is a good wrestler. She is. I always feel bad because I felt like they never gave her the push that she deserves. You know, she always is like the one, like kind of like the final boss for the next champion to beat before they become a champion again, or before they go reach the level of the championship match. They have to have that one final boss to get to the end boss or something. And it's always Natalia. She's always in like a tag team. But yeah, I think she's one of the better wrestlers they have. But not everybody can be a Coco Beware. Bobby the Brain Heenan, we all know. Coco was pretty cool to a kid. Oh yeah, man. Yeah, back in the day, he was cool as a kid. And little 8-year-old Jason. Yeah, I'm out there with Coco and Frankie. Like, woo! Yeah, let's get it on. But as an adult, you're like, dude, how could you do that, man? Bobby the Brain Heenan. Let's see here. Do they have anything in here worth really talking about? Bobby believes himself to possess not really. Nothing that we don't even know. Nothing that we don't know as fans of old Bobby the Brain Heenan. Well, I got 3 of those cards. All right. This is a wrestler. I think I could be wrong, but I want to say Dino Bravo from Quebec. I believe he was murdered by some gangsters back years ago in his hometown area. I could be wrong, but I think they had a Dark Side of the Ring episode where they had Dino Bravo, which I didn't know any much about his backstory. I knew who he was as a wrestler, but I believe he fell on hard times and started getting mixed up with like some kind of gang violence or something, and then he ended up getting killed by someone. So I really don't remember the whole thing about that. It said he claims to be the world's strongest man. Rick, not so far. I was just talking about that a few moments ago. Here in central Indiana, people start freaking out about snow. Just the prospect there may be snow, even though we're only supposed to get a light dusting maybe up to an inch. Up to an inch, that's it. People are like already like, white knuckling it, worried about the roads. And so people were out in full force yesterday trying to get ready to bat down the hatches and all that. And that's if we even get any snow at all. So no. So far, no snow. I can look out my window right there and there's nothing out there as of right now. Next up is Greg the Hammer Valentine. One of my favorite wrestlers when I was a kid. He just was very brutal. I mean, he was more like a brawler. You could tell like he was, but even though I didn't understand this as a kid, he was like stiff. At least it looked stiff in the ring. Like he did not mind getting punched, and he did not mind punching. So yeah, exactly, Rick. You know what it is. I did not know he was from Seattle. That's new. Greg is a ruthless and experienced wrestler. It says he loves to beat people up. He just loves to beat people up. And it says, unknown fact. Here we go. Greg is known for disabling more wrestlers than any other man in wrestling. So they were bragging that he would be able to disable fellow wrestlers, which again probably would not be something that you would see on the back of a car nowadays. Then we got Virgil, which talking about jobber of the day, jabroni of the day. I know he kind of he wrestled kind of sort of in WWE and then also in WCW. If you all know that, if you know the deal with Virgil, he'll show up anywhere and everywhere. Sometimes even places that he's not even invited to be at to do to try to sell his autographs. He'll be like in a parking lot, like legitly. There's pictures of him. Like he's not invited to go to the actual autograph show or convention, but he'll be like out in front of like the mall or the venue with a table, and he's sitting up there trying to sell his autograph. And I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know if I should feel like embarrassed or sad, or if it's just hilarious or what. But like, there's plenty of pictures out there of that. We've had a few days of flurries, nothing saying. Yeah, and that's the same thing here in Indiana. Like, if it even flurries or if there's any like quote unquote accumulation, it's not going to stick to the ground. This is going to just disappear. Like, it's too warm for it to actually stick. Then when I was a kid growing up, I never was that impressed with this wrestler. But apparently he was like a real BA, and somebody even Andre the Giant didn't want to mess with, and that is Haku. Haku apparently is the real deal. Big tough guy. Knew how to fight, like did not care. He didn't suffer any fools. And apparently he was, would be the first one to throw down with somebody. So I never gathered that watching him when I was a kid. I think he beat, I believe, Harley Race in King of the Ring. And then he would walk around and be like King Haku. He was walking around with the big crown on his head and all that, and just seemed goofy. But apparently in real life, he was a BA. Haku claims that the people will bow before him once again. So there you go. He will make you bow before him. It sounds pretty intense. And I don't really remember this guy all that much. Rugged Ronnie Garvin. I've heard about him. I've heard of him, but not much. So I can't really speak to a lot of that. Apparently, he was also a referee. Okay. And this guy here, I feel bad for him. I think his name's Terry Taylor. His real name's Terry Taylor. But in WWE, he went by the Red Rooster. And there are so many videos, at least maybe not so many, but there are a lot of videos of him doing the cockle-doodle-doo sound in his promo, and he's having to of course really work that angle and work it, and he'll be like, "I'm coming for you, Randy Macho Man Savage," and when the rooster gets out of his cage, he's gonna go woo 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 and all this kind of stuff. But he's getting down in the diaphragm. He's really working it up there. Now I know in real life now, he's a producer or somebody in the back, and he's actually pretty involved in the product. But on screen, he went from I believe being in Mid-South or AWA, which is a pretty legit wrestler, to a goofy gimmick as the Red Rooster. Garvin was a former NWA champion. Oh, okay. I did not know that. Like I said, some of these guys they were in WWE or WWF for such a little amount of time, or they had such minor bumps on the road of not acknowledgement, that they were in my young mind, they were not even really with them that long, or they didn't do anything of significance. And again, not to diminish what they did other places, they just didn't seem like they did much with WWF back in the day. Next one was a guy who really didn't do a lot. And it's kind of interesting. And Dave, I appreciate you hopping on because you have a lot of knowledge. You might be able to speak to this more. I just now realize it's the guy I'm getting ready to show off had like I don't even know, I don't even want to say a 10-year run, but maybe like a 5 to 8 year run that was, he was always a mid Carter, but he hung out with Hulk Hogan a lot and Andre the Giant. So he kind of had, top tier status off and on. But I never remember him with any other promotion. I never remember any other promotion talking about him, actually. So I don't know if he was mostly just a WWF guy, and then he kind of just like went off into the sunset, or if he was somebody else in another promotion, why no one ever talks about him? If he didn't use the same name or what? But it was Hillbilly Jim. Now I think he's from Mudlick, Kentucky, which again I was from Louisville. Grew up in Southern Indiana, but I was born in Louisville. And it was right there. I mean, like literally there was the Ohio River separated Indiana from Kentucky where I lived. But when I was a kid, him and then I think Uncle Elmer and some cousin, I don't even know. There was like a group of them all hung out a lot of times with Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan. But I always liked Hillbilly Jim. I thought he was cool. I had all his like LJN big rubber. I had the big rubbers. I had the big rubber action figures. And I just thought that Hillbilly Jim was one of the coolest guys. He'd come out there with the big floppy hat. He had a horseshoe necklace, like a big like a dog collar chain, like not a collar, but the chain with a horseshoe on it. And, they definitely played up the good old boy, hillbilly, redneck thing, which again, back then, that was like the big, back then people played into that gimmick. Nowadays, to get cheap heat, even people in LA are hicks. Like you hear people always, like that's the only safe word to use in wrestling now, because they're scared they're going to get canceled in real life. So everybody's a redneck, everybody's a hick, everybody's a hillbilly. No matter if you're in Mississippi or if you're in Washington State or if you're in New York, they're like, you're just a bunch of hillbillies or rednecks. And it's like, is there a lot of hillbillies or rednecks in LA or in Seattle or in Chicago? But you hear that because that's one of the very few terms they can use that gets people to be like, oh, because if they use any other kind of questionable colloquialism or word that could offend someone, they might for real get in trouble. So no matter where they're at, they say that. But back then, and no one's playing that gimmick. No, there's no wrestlers playing the hillbilly gimmick, really. The towns aren't like a bunch of hillbilly rednecks, but that's what they always go back to, all these like ridiculous, goofy, promo guys. He was a WWF guy through and through. After he retired, he was backstage guy too. Oh, okay. Thanks, Dave. I knew you knew Uncle Elmer and Cousin Luke. Yeah, that's who it was. Cousin Luke. That is it. I remember when he was the manager of Phineas and Henry. Genius, yes. They need to bring back the term country. Yes, they do. They need to bring back country bumpkin. Yes. Well, if there was somebody to do it, that would probably be MJF. MJF is pretty good about pulling off the most ridiculous like words or phrases or statements or whatever. He'd be one to do it. I think he'd be like, you're just nothing but a country bumpkin kind of thing. That would be hilarious. But again, like I said, I just think, it's hard to get like legit fans riled up because wrestlers and probably the promotions are scared to say anything that might be a little bit blur the line of reality or kayfabe with the fakeness of what the storylines, because they're doing storylines. It's a soap opera, but they're afraid because they're afraid of, like I was shocked that Juice Robinson did the whole thing with the quarters with MJF. Like I give AEW and MJF and Juice Robinson a lot of credit, because that might not be for you. That promo may not be for you, and I understand that. Maybe you felt like it was inappropriate. I get it, but the fact that they even did it and was willing to take the heat for it, I have to respect that, because you don't see too many places or wrestlers want to do stuff like that anymore. It was kind of like the whole thing with Christian talking about everybody's dead dads. Like, he said some pretty venomous stuff in his like promos, and they let him get away with it. MJF kind of said the same things when he was talking about Brian Pillman Jr. a year ago or longer, when they had like a little like 1 month or 2 or 3 week I don't know what's the word you want to use there, like work or whatever, and he would say things like that about Brian Pillman, and it was like some pretty rough stuff, and you just don't see that on WWE anymore. That's for sure. The only place that might beat them there is Billy Corgan's NWA, when you have the one guy doing a bump of coke. It's like they're back there doing coke on a table. That might take the cake right there. But yeah, that was pretty hilarious stuff. So they might have AEW has a little bit more to go before they're having the Master of Disaster, whatever that guy's name is, Father something or another, doing bumps of coke on a table. So the Mean Street Posse, that sounds familiar. It does. I do recognize it, but who was in the group? I mean, I don't remember who was in the group. While we're talking, I'm going to show some more cards. We got the Honky Tonk Man, Father James Mitchell, yes. The Sinister Minister, yes. Okay, I knew I was in the ballpark of it. I couldn't remember exactly. I remember him being with Canyon, right, and Mortis. I do remember him and when they were in WCW. I remember him there, and I really like Canyon and Mortis or whatever. Well, it is Mortis, right? I want to keep saying Morbius, but that's a Marvel, like a vampire character in Marvel. But I think it's Mortis. But anyways, I do remember him there, and I liked him a lot on that. But yeah, that coke bump spot was hilarious. That was next level right there. Joey Az, Pete Gas, Shane McMahon. Okay. I don't remember any of those other guys except Shane McMahon. Of course, I know who Shane is, Shane O'Mac, but I don't remember the other two guys. So yeah, I don't remember that faction that McMahon was involved with. I guess was during a time I just didn't watch. I mean, like I said, honestly, I've watched pretty much all the Attitude Era stuff at this point because I went back and rewatched a lot of it. But I was watching more WCW then. But also, I just didn't like I mentioned this already. I didn't like a lot of the angles that WWF was doing back then. I mean, all the TNA stuff, and I don't know. I mean, nowadays I wish we could go back to just getting balls to the wall about stuff, but we ain't ever going back to those days. That's for sure. Rich guys from Greenwich, Connecticut. Yeah, that sounds about right. So Honky Tonk Man, another guy from the South Tennessee. Whoever would have thought a Elvis gimmick would work? Well, apparently it did with Honky Tonk Man. He had a great run as an Intercontinental Champion until it was broken recently by Gunther, which again I haven't watched WWE, but it's just something that you cannot not follow or hear about. Let's see here. He has a shake, rattle, and roll neck breaker, which I remember that. Claims to sing and dance and play the guitar and wrestle better than anyone. That is a lie. Adding opponents to his Honky Tonk Man's greatest hits list. That is true. They were billed from being the mean streets, the mean streets of Greenwich Village, Greenwich, Connecticut. Yes. See, that's the kind of stuff I like. That so over the top, ridiculous stuff. I appreciate. Here's Jim the Animal Neidhart, which again is daughter Natty or Natalia. Great wrestler, good looking woman. Wish she got more accolades than she does. I kind of feel like she jobs out to everybody at the top levels. Like she's again a mid card, maybe just a smidge above mid card in some scenarios, but she never gets to a higher status. And all the top stars beating her to get to the next level. I just kind of don't like that because I think she's probably one of the better wrestlers in WWE, female or not, or male for that matter. That the whole thing. I mean, everybody remembers Jim the Animal Neidhart's laugh. He'd always be like, that was like his thing. I remember him always laughing, like during the interview with Mean Gene or whatever. He was always like stroking the beard, as he is in this picture, kind of, and laughing. And again, as a kid, I love these guys. As an adult, I'm just kind of like, meh. It is the Bushwhackers, Butch and Luke. I think, if I remember correctly, they were with another promotion. In America, they were called the Sheep Herders, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that was Mid-South they were in or one of the Texas promotions or something, but I believe it was they were the Sheep Herders, which again, I didn't know anything about them back then. But I was a kid, the Bushwhackers was fun. You could, again, they did a gimmick where they just walk up to random girls or boys, children, adults, and like lick their faces. That would be not acceptable nowadays, especially the post-CVID world that we live in, CVID-19 world. You would not be able to get away with that. People will be losing their minds if you had some adult man, or anybody for that matter, licking their children. That would not fly. So yeah, but back then that was part of their like thing, is they would come down. Whoa! I mean, that's the stuff that kids loved back when we love that stuff. I mean, that was over the top ridiculousness. I was there for it. Natalia is the Generations Victoria, the one that was. Yes, exactly. You got that right, Dave. And much more violent. Yes, they were much more violent. Yeah, that's right. I saw videos of them as the Sheep Herders or whatever, and it was like a John Moxley fight every single time. They're like bleeding, and yeah, it was pretty violent. They totally were not like that in WWE. Again, they were kind of goofy. One of the Bushwhackers Festival, yeah, one of them did. You would not believe how many bags of chips I had to eat to collect the Hostess stickers back in that day. Oh my gosh. That is true. I have some I do have some of those cards, of the Hostess sticker cards. I have some stuff. I have Hostess. There was an ice cream promotion that I have some ice cream cards. I have some that are really small and tiny. They're like maybe a 1 by 1 by 1 by 1 inch little like cards. I forgot what product that was off of. I have. That's the one thing I like about wrestling cards. Kind of like with same thing with like baseball cards. There is so much crossover with like food and beverage that there's a lot of cool stuff out there for collectors. So once you kind of collect some of the big boy, some of the mainstay cards, you can get really off the rails and really obscure real quick. Victoria was banging this. That is true. She was definitely a good-looking woman. She still looks good. I just saw her do an interview this past year with Chris Van Vliet, I believe, CVV, and I was shocked at how good-looking she still looks. I was like, wow. The same thing with Trish Stratus, still hot. I still think Lita looks good, for sure. I think Lita looks great. There's a handful of them girls that still look fantastic. Fantastic. I saw an interview not too long ago where they had Chyna's sister, which Chyna's sister actually is a good-looking woman, which is kind of funny because she looks like Chyna a little bit, as you can expect because they're sisters, but she looked way more feminine. But she still had some of the same facial features, I guess. So it's like, so if Chyna looked more feminine, maybe she would have gotten a little further, but she looked more, manly, and that was just, unfortunately, the how the cards were dealt with her. But her sister, I was like, oh, her sister's a good-looking woman, actually. So it's kind of interesting to see how that they look. But they did an interview with her sister not too long ago, and I was like, oh, okay, not too shabby. Oh, here's another Bushwhacker one. We already see those. That's 3. Let's go to the next one. All right, Gorilla Monsoon. It's funny because Gorilla Monsoon, everybody talks about as an announcer, which is all most of us ever really knew him as an announcer. He had a wrestling career. I've seen some videos of him wrestling, I believe, Andre the Giant. I think he wore one of those, like, kind of like Andre the Giant, like singlets, like a black singlet back in the 70s, early 80s, maybe, of course. And I'm sure he was wrestling in the 60s or whatnot. But I never knew him as those. I knew him as an announcer. I knew him as like a play-by-play commentator. I never really knew him as a wrestler. But when you see him in the ring, he's a big guy. Like, not only was like a heavy set big guy, but as a tall guy, like he was a big boy. And you didn't really get that whenever you see him, because most of the time when I saw him, he was sitting down behind a table. But he actually was a big old guy. And apparently he was also a booker and a producer in the back a lot of times. So he kind of was like the Jim Ross before the Jim Ross, except Jim Ross never wrestled. Not that I'm aware of, at least. And then this one here is kind of cool because, let's see, hold on, wait. But China gave more credibility to women than they could. Oh, yeah. That's true now. I was just talking initially about her looks. China, by far, is the most legit women's wrestler ever. I mean, that goes without saying. She did things that no one has ever done before and maybe will never be done. I do think they have something special with Jade Cargill. I think Jade Cargill, if she could get the wrestling part figured out, that she could be on that level of China, because she could do things that only really China could do. She can also do, and she's a much better looking woman. She has the look for sure, but she needs to get work done on the the acting, a lot of the promo work. I think that for what she does, it's fine, but really what she needs to be able to do is be able to do the ring work to the level of you need to be able to be like a superstar, as the WWE people look for. So, but I do think in WWE, if she's going to be successful, she's going to be successful in WWE, because that's the best place for her. Even though I hate to see her leave AEW, and I thought she had a very fun run, and she had some really good matches, even though a lot of them didn't last long. I thought of her as being kind of like Goldberg and just dominating everybody was a good thing. But whenever she got in the ring for a long period of time, it was usually kind of rough. I do think she progressed and got better. A lot of people want to crap on her all the time. I never understood that. I thought she did a relatively pretty good job, all things considered. But it'll be interesting to see how she does in WWE. But I do think she is one of the few, like her and Charlotte Flair are the couple of the ones I think about could be on that level with China, which is like they could compete and be believable in any scenario, even wrestling men. Even though, again, that probably would not happen in WWE, if ever. But you can see that, and it wouldn't be weird. It would be a believable scenario. And I understand, like, for me personally, I got to be able to believe that person can at least have a chance to win. Like, even when it was like Rey Mysterio Jr. versus like Big Show, like it just wasn't real for me. Like, it took me completely out of the game, or like he's against Brock Lesnar. It just wasn't real. Like, not to take anything away from Mysterio, but just to say, it's just same thing goes for men than it goes for women. Like, having women go in a match with like a random guy, like jobber, maybe. But if you have them in there with like a legit other mid-card level wrestler, not higher, it just takes you out of it immediately. Like, they're not going to win, and if they do win, it's a complete like just slap in the face. So, it is what it is. But I do think there's some chances there. So then the one I've talked about this a little bit before, but then you have Danny Davis. Here he's a wrestler. He was a referee, but he became a wrestler for a while. And Danny Davis is actually from, or at least he came back to Louisville, Kentucky. And he ran or did run OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling. And I don't know if that's what it was called in the 90s or whatnot. But I went to school with his daughter. So I went to a high school in my hometown, and I guess he lived in the same town I lived in because his daughter was in. Everybody would always be like, that's Danny Davis's daughter. And I'm like, who's Danny Davis? Because it's such a generic, name. They're like the referee from WWF back in the day. And I'm like, the one who ended up becoming the wrestler for a while with like the referee type, like the long pants or whatever. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, his daughter goes to our school. And so sure enough, Danny Davis' daughter went to our school. And then the OVW was actually in my hometown of Jeffersonville, Indiana. It wasn't in Louisville. Everybody thought it was in Louisville, but it was actually in Indiana. And it was in Indiana. I think maybe it's been moved over to Louisville now, all these years later. Maybe when Al Snow took over or whatever it was, maybe he moved it over to Louisville, like proper. But the actual OVW, I don't remember if that's what it was called in the 90s. It might have been. That was like right in my backyard. Like literally, I was like not even a 5-minute drive from there, and I used to go watch the matches. This is before all the big names showed up. The ones that actually made a name, like Randy Orton and Batista, and John Cena, all those guys. This was before. This was like in the 90s. But yeah, it was cool. I remember doing that. It was fun. You went to school with the dangerous Danny Davis daughter. Yes, I did go to school with his daughter. But I honestly don't remember much about it. I know if I ever talked to her, I don't remember it. I don't remember if we were in the same grade. I don't know if she was older or younger than me. I just remember people would always say, Danny Davis' daughter went to our school. And I remember thinking that was pretty cool, but I never cared enough to be like, well, which one is she? Who's the daughter? Like if it would have been like Jake the Snake or Randy Macho Man Savage or Ricky the Dragon Steamboat or Hulk Hogan, then yeah, I'd be all about that. I'd be like, who? What? But Danny Davis, I was like, meh. Even then, I was like, meh. So yeah. Oh, I didn't take it on the prom. I couldn't even tell you I couldn't even tell you what she looked like. She could have been drop dead gorgeous, or she could have been, Luna. I don't know, but yeah, I'm not for sure. Then we got Big Boss Man from was it Cobb County, Georgia? Is that right? The Department of Corrections from Cobb County, Georgia. Let's see here. Oh, then his tagline or unusual characteristics was bringing his own brand of law and order to the WWF by intimidating opponents. But yeah, I remember Big Boss Man, 6'6". It's a pretty big dude. Pretty big dude. So there you have that. Another Big Boss Man card, so we're doing that. Then we got another Bushwhackers here of Butch and Luke. Whoa! And then we got the Polka Dot Man himself, Dusty Rhodes. Poor guy. Up until recently, and I guess still there's going to be time to tell, the Rhodes family have always been like shat on by the McMahon family or WWF. Like they brought Dusty in, who was like obviously a megastar in the NWA, and turned him into a goofball as a dancing, some kind of dancing gimmick where he's out there just dancing around in his like black and yellow polka dot trunks. They had like a little lady that out there with them who would go out there and dance with them. I can't remember her name, but it was like somebody's mom was out there, like grandmother, and she's out there dancing around with Dusty Rhodes. And then you have obviously a son, Goldust, with Dustin Rhodes, who's a great wrestler, and he's really proven it a lot in the AEW as just Dustin Rhodes. For the love of God, thank you, Lord, for letting him have like a legit, like real, just wrestling matches without being goofy gimmick. And then his other son, Cody, which started out as Stardust or something, and then he had a faceplate on it first, some kind of like face protection, and then he became Stardust, and then they finally, would let him go, or he left or whatever. But he came back. Cody Rhodes came back, and they keep saying this long-term storytelling. It's happening. You just have to trust the process. So we're gonna see what happens if that's actually true. If after a year and change, 2 years, if Cody Rhodes is going to get like a legit title, or they're just going to keep on doing the stuff they're doing with him. Like he keeps getting close, but they never actually give it to him. We'll see. We will see. Then we have Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, doing the abdominal stretch, I think. Great one right there. His execution of crisp, fluid wrestling moves. Arrogance believes himself to be absolutely perfect. Well, he was. He was absolutely perfect. I remember that before he actually, if I remember correctly, if I remember correctly, he had a run of videos, of vignettes, if you will, where they were preparing his debut with WWF, and like it was always him like doing something that was perfect. So shooting a basketball, hitting a hockey puck, like a hole-in-one with golf or whatever it was. And that was his thing, and he would just be like, absolutely perfect. Even though it might have been like 5,000 tries, you would never know that, of course, because they would film the one time that he got it done, or they would film it, or they cut it in a way that makes it look like he did it. But I remember that, and like so you would have like weeks of these vignettes. I always thought it was pretty funny. And then he was a great wrestler. I mean, he definitely was one of the few back then, like fantastic technicians, for sure. Then we have Sensational Queen Sherry. She also went by Scary Sherry, I think. The thing is, I didn't know this again about her, but she, again, I think with AWA, she was a legit wrestler. She wrestled for many years. I think it was Sherry Martel, I think is her real name. And when she came to WWF, they turned her into a valet, and she pretty much was that from the time she got there to the time she left. I'm sure she had some wrestling matches from time to time, but she pretty much was a valet or a manager, or whatever you want to call it. So she was there with Macho Man, and then I can't remember who else she was with, but I know at WCW, she was with Harlem Heat. Oh, she was with Shawn Michaels for a while. So, I mean, she was just like, it was like the weirdest thing. Like, Shawn Michaels didn't make sense. The Macho King one, I guess, kind of sort of did. The Harlem Heat did not make any sense. Because they both, especially Booker T was already a talker, so what they needed Sherry for, I don't know. I mean, I guess just to give her a job, I don't know, but it was kind of like, eh. Next up is Hercules. I remember this guy a lot, but I always got like him confused with the Berserker and Barbarian and Warlord. They all had like the same, they obviously didn't look the same, but they all had like kind of the same look, like it was like body type and like gimmick. They were just like these like bigger, larger than life like villains. And they would just destroy people for the most part until they got up against the Hulk Hogan type or whatever, and then they ended up getting like whipped. But I remember these guys for sure. Yeah, swinging the chains around the ring. I forgot about that, but that was like one of his things. He was like swinging the chains around the ring. Okay, make sure I didn't miss anything. Everybody's favorite manager, Jimmy the Heart. Jimmy the Mouth of the South Heart. He was in Mid-South forever. And good friends with Hulk Hogan in real life. Every time you see Hulk Hogan in a video, Jimmy Hart's there. It's just so strange. Like Hulk Hogan does like some kind of signing at his like one of his like little studio like gift shops, beat shops. Jimmy Hart's there. He's at the House of Pancakes, eating a stack of pancakes. Jimmy Hart's there. He's going to vote at the voting booth. Jimmy Hart's there. It's like Jimmy Hart's always with Hogan. Like no matter what, they've been together since the 70s. Like it's like they're like joined twins. And then you have Akeem, who was, I believe, One Man Gang, which I like that gimmick. One Man Gang, a big guy. And then in here, again, a gimmick that would never work now. It says, from the the deepest, darkest parts of Africa is where it keeps from. So you have this white guy named Akeem, and they said he's from the deepest, darkest parts of Africa. Oh my gosh. So yeah. As One Man Gang, he's actually really good. He was actually really vicious. I've seen matches when he was One Man Gang. I think it was AWA, I believe. And he was legit. But as Akeem, he was out there dancing around. He's out there kind of just like doing his like little dances. And you're just like, okay, dude, what? Then we got Bad News Brown again. And I don't remember much about him. I know I told you all before, his finishing move was the Ghetto Blaster, which again, probably not going to fly in 2023. Special talents, he's mean. That's what it actually says. And it says unusual characteristic. Bad News doesn't have any friends or allies, nor does he want them. So there you go. Cracks me up. Another Coco Beware without Frankie in the picture. No Frankie in this one. The Birdman's ring style sings with. Hold on, wait, what? The Birdsman ring style sings with stunning aerial tactics and hawk-like speed. That's really a reach, guys. Frankie B. Oh, Coco Beware's McCall. Frankie B. Another Bobby the Brain Heenan right there. Horizontal card. I don't know. Is he really from Beverly Hills? That has to be like a gimmick city. I think that is. I think he's from Minnesota. He's full of tricks. Shocker. Another Dino Bravo. We talked about him earlier. All right, another Dino. And then here we have the Genius. And then this is Randy the Macho Man Savage's legit real brother. Their real last name is Poffo. So Randy Poffo, and then I can't remember the Genius's name, his first name. He claims to be the world's smartest man. So the big gimmick with the Genius is that he was, he was there because Randy was there. And he's the first one to say that he got to be in WWF because they wanted Randy, and so they agreed to let the Genius, I can't remember his first name, I feel terrible, but Poffo here, younger Poffo, little brother Poffo, I think, be in WWF because Randy's in WWF. So his gimmick was he'd walk out on the stage and do a poem, do some sort of poem. And supposedly he did it all from memory, or he would write it himself, and then he would memorize it. And, that part I have to admit is pretty cool. Lanny. Leaping Lanny Poffo, that was his real name. I was trying to sit there thinking about it. So his real name was Lanny Poffo, I guess. But he went by the Genius in WWF. But yeah, so anyways, so that was his thing. And so he really wrote these like poems. And that stuff was actually pretty good, but also it was very gimmicky and goofy too. Then we got another rugged Ronnie Gardner or Garvin. And as Dave said, he was an NWA champ. I did not know that, but apparently he won a championship with the NWA. And then they have him as a referee. That has to be a typo. I don't remember Classy Freddie Blassie ever as a referee, but it says back here, referee. He would not be a referee. He is a manager. He was a manager. When was he ever a referee? That makes no sense. Oh, Classy Freddie Blassie. he had a thing where he would call people pencil neck geeks. I remember that because my dad would say that stuff to me and my brother all the time. My dad would be like, "You ain't nothing but a pencil neck geek, Jason." I'm like, "Thanks, Dad. You got that from classy Freddie Blassie. Don't even lie." Another Danny Davis there. You better be careful because he's pointing at Haku. Haku gonna break his finger or take his arm off his shoulder and shove it up his arse. So you better be careful there. Oh man. And then we have Demolition Smash right there. I'm kind of surprised that is it Axe and Smash? Is that who the two people are? They're not in the Hall of Fame, in the WWE Hall of Fame. There's a way less deserving people in the Hall of Fame. You would think that Demolition would be in there. I mean, don't you all want to see them come out in their like S&M outfits again with the face paint? And I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but does it ever disturb you all as fans, or just kind of makes you just be like, you really don't have to do that? Whenever wrestlers do like conventions, and wrestlers who would wrestle in face paint still dress themselves up in face paint for the convention. It's like, we don't need to see 72-year-old Grandpa Smash and Axe or whatever in face paint. I really don't even need to see Sting in face paint, even though Sting's like maybe can pull it off because he's still in decent shape. I mean, he's in better shape than I am, but I'm just saying, like, you know, he can pull that off, I guess, still, so he can still wear the makeup if he wants. But it's like, dude, you can still just be Steve Borden. Just, you know, I was like, you don't need to wear face paint. I understand some people, I guess, really want that, especially with Sting, but really Smash and Axe, you know, do you Crush? Yeah, but Crush, that's true, too. That's a good point. Do you really need to see those guys in face paint? No, I don't. Like, as long as they are who they say they are, and that's who they are, you know, I'm like, that's fine with me. I don't need them in paint. I don't need them painted up to do it. But I do find that somewhat interesting. Like, it's kind of like like Elvira. You know, her real name is Cassandra Peterson. And I'm okay with just seeing Cassandra Peterson, the human, the person, and not Elvira, the character. But I know a lot of people, when they go and see her at convention, they want her dressed up as Elvira. But, you know, it's kind of weird to see like a lady who's like a grandmother, or, I mean, Lord knows, maybe even older than that now. She also has to be in her late 60s, dressed up as Elvira. It just seems odd. Like, I don't need to see a 68-year-old woman in a tight leather or tight black, you know, corset or whatever with her fake black, you know, Dolly Parton hair piece for pictures. Like, you can just be Cassandra Peterson. We know who you are. Like, it's not 1989. We can do that. So I don't that to me seems a little bit odd. But what do I know? Jim the Animal Neidhart right here has some jabroni in a headlock. I did forget he did have his finisher move was the power slam. That is true. Then we got another Haku right here from the Isle of Tonga. From the Isle of Tonga. Haku claims to be the oh yeah, I already read that line, so I ain't doing that again. Then we got Tito Santana, who went on to become a school teacher, I think, in New York City. Like, legitly a school teacher. I don't think he does anything with wrestling anymore. I mean, maybe he does, like, you know, conventions or autograph shows or whatever, but he's like a legit, like, teacher. So, from Tacula, Mexico, the flying forearm was his finisher move or famous wrestling move. And you probably won't get away with that anymore. You can't have Tito Santana then have like a little like sombrero. Probably not going to fly in today's world. Then we got Slick, which I remember him being around, but I can't remember. You know, again, he kind of was like that Teddy Long. Like, he was there and he had, you know, some purpose, but it was just kind of goofy, and I didn't really get what he was supposed to be trying to do. Again, he was a manager. Teddy Long was a referee who I think became like a GM or something, and just It was a gimmick that didn't work for me. Here we go again with the Genius, Leaping Lanny Poffo. And he would usually come out looking like this. This was like his normal look. Whenever they needed him to do like a little soliloquy or whatever it's called, this is the one right here. Ode the Genius. And then I don't remember him at all as in WWE, hardly at all. I mean, maybe early on, but Barry Windham, the Widowmaker, I believe this is Bray Wyatt's uncle. And this is, I believe that's right. Is that right? Is Barry Windham? I think I could be wrong about that. I thought Barry Windham and then Mike Rotundo, they were brothers or cousins or something. I could be wrong about that. Now that I'm thinking about it, I could be wrong. But anyways, he was a way bigger deal like an NWA, and he was like part of the Four Horsemen, I think, for a while. But when he came over to WWF, I just felt like, yeah. We got Bret the Hitman Hart. There's not really much to say that's been said about Bret the Hitman Hart. You have that right there. It looks like he might have. I can't tell who he has up in that pile driver, but there you have that. You got Barry Horowitz or Horovitz. Okay, I was right. It is his uncle. Okay, good. See, I have my moments. Like, I'm not one to just pretend like I know everything, because definitely I do not. But okay, that's his uncle. I thought they were on. I thought it was uncle. Do you have the complete class? I almost do. I put all these in my. I put all these on trading card database, Joe, and I think it said I had like 72% of the entire set or something. So I might actually go for the entire set now that I actually almost have it all. Then we have Jack Tunney, the president of WWF back in the day. And then we have Axe from Demolition Action Smash. There you go. And their S&M outfits. And then we have another Demolition card here. Oh, that's the same one. Never mind. I'm not going to show that one. And then we got Brother Love. And this is Bruce Pritchard in real life, who is like Vince McMahon's right-hand man, has been for decades. But Brother Love, which is kind of funny because he'd be like, he also was a character that was like over the top, and it would say like ridiculous things. And we got the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. So there you have that. We all know that Shawn Michaels went on to have the career that he had, and then Marty Jannetty did not. And then here we have another. Oh, I think I already showed this card, but there's another one of Axe and Smash. And then we got Macho Man right there. This Macho Madness. This is the Macho King. So you got Randy Macho Man Savage. Let's see here. Nothing really special on the back of the card, so whatever. And then we have Miss Elizabeth. She looks like she's dressed for prom, like prom in like 1989. That's kind of goofy. Oh, I didn't know she was from Kentucky. Huh. Who knew? I did not know that. Well, maybe everybody knew. I didn't know that. Huh. I did not know that. That's wild. I did not know, but from Kentucky. I didn't sound like she never really had a Kentucky like accent, so interesting. But Miss Elizabeth. Ooh, yeah. I'm not gonna show these are just like those like goofy cards. Then we have another Bret the Hitman Hart right there. That's true. The Destiny's Child is the R&B version of the Rockers. This is very true. And then we have Bret the Hitman Hart. This is pre the Montreal Screwjob right there. We got another Honky Tonk Man right there. Which, you know, everybody's a big fan of the Honky Tonk Man. Orlando, what's up, my friend? And then we have, let's see here. Basically, my favorite wrestler as a kid growing up, Andre the Giant from Chernobyl, French Alps. 7'4". His least favorite person, this is hilarious. Anyone who dares to get in the ring with him, that's his least favorite person. Least favorite animal, Jake the Snake Roberts, Python Damien. Yeah, his wrestling move was a headbutt. At this point, that's for sure. Yeah, the OE headbutt. If you go back and watch any of the Andre's matches from like, I don't know, 85 on, which is pretty bad. Andre the Giant didn't do anything. And I hate to say that because I'm a huge fan of Andre, but he would do a leg kick where the person had to run into his leg. All he had to do was just barely get his leg up best he could, and then the person would run into his leg. He would do like a sit down on the person. That's it. He would just sit on him. He would do a headbutt, but his headbutts are even goofy because he always put his huge hand, on their head and then would headbutt them, so he's only hitting his hand. It didn't even look good. He would throw them up against the ropes or the turnbuckles, and then bounce his butt into their pelvis, so he would like back into them as a finishing move. So these are the Andre the Giant move set from the mid to late 80s to the 90s when he finally just no longer could do it. Yeah, I hope everyone's having a good weekend too, Orlando. Thank you. So Andre the Giant, honestly, hardly ever got down on the mat because once he was down the mat, he wouldn't be able to get back up. And he only had like legitly a half dozen to 8 wrestling moves that you could say that were like, okay, he did something at that there. That was something that done. And again, that's being generous. Then we have Andre the Giant with Jake the Snake Roberts there. And that's sad because when I was a kid, I think Andre the Giant could do no wrong. Andre the Giant was the man. I should say he was the giant. And then unfortunately, the wheels fell off as I've gotten older and I'm being like, what the heck? Then we got one Hulk Hogan card, Hulk Rules. I don't think Hulk Hogan's really 6'8". Is he really that? I mean, maybe not. I mean, not anymore, probably. But was he really that tall? Maybe, I guess. It says Hulk Hogan's least favorite person. Doesn't have one. Hulk looked for the best in everyone. Aww. And then, yeah, Hulk Hogan's move was the leg drop, which again is the lamest finishing move ever. Special feats. Body slamming Andre the Giant. Sheer power and strength. And then regaining the belt in WrestleMania 5 and starring Rowe in the movie No Holds Barred. That is his special feat or talent. All right, Terry. Unusual characteristic. Hulkamania being a ring legend and one of the most popular and dominant wrestlers in the 80s. His special concern for kids. Oh, okay. I guess they was doing multiple things. He cares about the children. We are the world. We are the children. All right. And the last one is the Ultimate Warrior, who literally changed his name to Warrior later in life. He is also from Indiana, He is from Brazil, Indiana. You would think Brazil would be, in the country, but there is a Brazil, Indiana. That is where he is from originally. It says he's from parts unknown, but I actually know that he is not from parts unknown. He's from Indiana. Pressing opponents over his head as if they were weightless and then dropping them face first onto the mat is his wrestling move. I do remember that. And let's see here. Unusual characteristic, his fearsome appearance in war paint and his war pendants. Is that right? So those are the cards, guys. I just want to say again, thank you for Doug from Doug's in Boston, who sent me this care package between the baseball cards, which I did a couple days ago, and those wrestling cards. I have put them in my trading card database log. I will now put them away, and I probably will put together the set since I have two-thirds of the set at this point. So why not? Why not go for the whole kit and caboodle? So yeah, that's it, guys. So I appreciate everybody hanging on here. We almost went an hour and a half. That was way longer than I thought, but good times were had, I hope, by all. But I will let you all go, let you all get on with your Sunday morning. And until next time, thank you for watching. Peace.